Hey everybody, welcome to episode 2 of the Team Talley podcast. I'm Mike, and with me as always, Stephanie, my amazing wife. So we wanted to thank you for joining us for a second episode. I promise this one probably won't be as long. We covered the backstory last time. The origin story is always the longest. After that, you get into the really good stuff. So I thought we would talk today about getting to bring Talley home for the first time and actually getting to introduce her to family members and friends, people getting to meet her. Because COVID was really bad at the time. The hospital only allowed 2 people in, me and Stephanie, period. Nobody else got to see her except through the occasional video chat or whatever. So it was also pretty scary once we got her home too, because people could come in with COVID. So it was pretty insane. It was stressful. I know for me, I really even couldn't believe it when they told us, hey, you can take her home. It's like, really? Are you sure?
So day 89, we're sitting at the hospital, and I think at that point Talley was around 38 weeks gestational, and they had told us that she would be in the hospital till at least 40 weeks, if not 41 to 42 weeks. But we had also moved into the next unit, which is more of like an independent unit where they don't have nurses all the time, and it's basically preparing them to go home. So we were told the Sunday before would be the day. I guess the doctor came in on Friday and said the goal was to get her home over the weekend. So it didn't happen on Saturday. We were expecting it to happen on Sunday. And then they come in and they want to run tests on her kidneys, and they want to run tests, another head ultrasound, and I guess they just wanted to make sure the final touches were ready to go. Which, it was a blessing from God, because the Sunday that she was supposed to come home, we didn't have power for most of the day, and she was coming home on oxygen support, so there's no way she could have came home with no power. We also had Miles's birthday party planned for that afternoon, and it just, if it would have been the right day, it would have worked out, but it obviously was not the right day. So we were frustrated over the weekend because we had hopes of her coming home. We had family in town for Miles's birthday, and it didn't work out. So we just felt another setback, disappointment of the NICU life, and we were told they wanted to run all these tests, so we weren't sure when she was going to get to come home. So the next day, I'm sitting at work at my desk, and I get a call from the hospital, which is always a little nerve-wracking. And they said, Talley's ready to come home. And at night, we had Meet the Teacher with Nevaeh, and we had to wait for Mike to get off lunch, at least at his lunch break or something. And we had to make arrangements for the kids, because we had no idea she was coming home that evening. So my parents took the kids to dinner, and we went to the hospital to get Talley and surprised the 2 older siblings with their baby sister coming home. It was very great that my parents and all of us are so close, because we were able to get Talley home, get her oxygen set up and prepared before the kids coming home to see her. So, it's a whole new experience bringing home a baby on oxygen. You don't know what to expect. You don't know how to take care of her needs. You get a brief rundown from the hospital staff of what to do and what to look for. But when you're the ones in charge, it's a little scary. So this episode, we brought Nevaeh, the older sister. We were hoping that she could give us her insight, feelings on how she felt whenever we had Talley so early, whenever she could only see her for video chat. There was even one time she had to go to the hospital with me so I could drop off my breast milk, and she had to wait in the waiting room and then go home with Mike so we could switch out. So I know it was really hard for her to be in the hospital and not be able to see her sister. So I just kind of wanted to get her intake on the baby being in the hospital, what it was like to have a baby come home on oxygen, and how things are going now as the big sister in the picture. Hey, Nevaeh.
Hi.
So you want to start from like the day you woke up and you found Ma here, and you found out that your sister came 3.5 months early?
So, I mean, I remember waking up and I was like, where's Stephanie and my dad? Right? And Ma, she was like, they went to the hospital. And I was confused because, the baby wasn't due for like 3 months. It's like, why are they at the hospital? She was just like, Stephanie's having the baby. I'm like, okay. I was just so confused, Like,
At that point, did you have any idea what that even meant? Like the ramifications of the baby's coming this early. What does that mean?
Did you realize that she was going to be so sick and so little, and
Like if you get to school early,
See,
no big deal.
I really didn't think about if a baby comes early like that, they aren't really formed all the way, I just kind of thought they would be like fully grown already when they, no matter how early they came.
Well, she was fully formed as far
But,
as
like,
she had her body, but her development hadn't.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
But maybe you thought just smaller.
I mean, because like she didn't have all her hair or anything yet. I just didn't think about that.
And it's like almost when puppies come, because her eyes weren't opened yet, and it took a couple of days for the eyes to open.
So usually when like babies come out, they can kind of open their eyes in the first couple hours.
Or right away.
Yeah, depends if they want to.
And they even cry. She wasn't able to cry yet. She wasn't able to breathe on her own yet.
I didn't know so.
Which you didn't get to go see her either. So.
She couldn't cry because she was intubated. She had the tube. It wasn't because she couldn't cry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so you found out the baby came early, and then we went 89 days with us having to split our time between the hospital and the house and work. So how was that 3 months?
I mean, it was hard because, like, sometimes I just already don't get to spend much time with my parents. Because, like, my dad's working, Stephanie's with Miles, or, like, they're both at work. But then, even on their free time, they were either with the baby or, like, at the hospital. So I really just didn't get to see them very much. I didn't get to spend, like, any time with them. So.
I mean, it's hard for us, too.
Yeah, one of us was always at the hospital. It wasn't that we enjoyed being at the hospital. Even that first weekend, Stephanie didn't get home until what? They didn't let you home until Monday, did they?
I think so.
Yeah, so I was up there a lot that weekend too, that first weekend with her on my birthday.
Yeah.
Never forget that hospital cafeteria Philly cheesesteak birthday. Wasn't bad. So that had to be pretty scary too, because I'm sure you didn't really even comprehend what having a C-section meant either.
I mean, I knew that was like you didn't actually give birth to the baby; they took it out of you. Like somehow I knew that.
So, during the process of us being in the hospital, did you realize how sick your sister was, or the surgery she was having, or any of the complications she had?
I mean, not really. Like, you would always say, like, she's going into this MRI and stuff, and, like, you would always say how small she was, and, like, I just, so you would say she was smaller than my dad's hand, but I wasn't able to actually picture that. Like, I would have to see her to think how small she was.
It's hard to picture that.
I think that because the hospital has such strict rules for COVID during this time, that it's hard for anyone to really imagine how small she was without seeing her. Because I remember when we posted the picture with Mike's hand like on top of her, and Mike's hand was basically longer than her, people were like, oh wow, she is really small. So even seeing her on video chat or through pictures, you
Like, she
don't
didn't look
realize
that
how
small in the
small she
pictures.
is.
Yeah, she didn't look that small in any of the pictures. Even the one compared to my dad's hand, she didn't actually look small.
And at that size, like when we first got to try and pick her up and hold her, it felt like you're gonna drop her and break her.
And we didn't even get to hold her for the first 2 weeks. So she was a little bit, teeny tiny bit bigger when we got to hold her, not much. But, so I remember when I came home from the hospital, we had to have a sit down visit chat with Nevaeh because I just want to make sure she understood the severity of things and what possible outcomes could have come from the situation. Thank goodness they didn't come to that. But do you remember the conversation we had when Talley came home from the hospital?
Briefly. Like,
We just basically touched over how sick she was, how small she was, and how long of a time she was probably going to spend in the hospital. And basically at that time we were still so unknown of what her future held. So
The only doctor that gave us answers was Dr. Doom, and all of her answers were bad.
yeah.
Everybody else was like, we'll just have to wait and see. And every day since, it's been wait and see. How's she doing? Okay so far. That's all we get. And we tried not to go into too much detail with Nevaeh. We wanted her to understand the severity, but not to frighten her. We didn't want to overwhelm you because you were still little back then. You had just turned 10, or were about to turn 10 when she was born. So much littler. We didn't want to scare you too much. We didn't want you to worry too much. But, so when we brought her actually home, what did you think the first time you saw her? Like in person, not on video chat, not on a little screen this big.
I
Were
mean,
you surprised when you came in?
Yeah, I was really surprised when I came in, and like I feel like I was like really overwhelmed, because there were a bunch of cords and they were all like inside of her. It's just kind of weird. Like I've never actually seen an oxygen tank, and like I got to hold her and stuff, and I was like, it was hard. I was thinking like, am I being too rough? Like, or I just didn't know what to do. It was just really weird.
Yeah, I remember asking, or I think Mike asked our neurosurgeon, is she like at that point more delicate? And the neurosurgeon said no, but when you're still holding this baby that's gone through so much in her first few months of life and she's hooked on oxygen, it is intimidating. It can be very intimidating.
And she had that reservoir that was in her head still. They didn't take it out because they didn't want to do another surgery unless they had a reason to. So we didn't know if that made her more susceptible to like a head injury or something. I don't know. All sorts of things. And they tried to help as much as they could. But when we went to the doctor, we would ask about weaning her off the oxygen. And they'd be like, she's oxygenating okay, so I guess. If you want to. Mm-hmm. It's like, that doesn't tell me anything. Because I wanted to, and you were like, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a little bit more sense of a security for me. You don't know if she's ready, and you don't. To me, a lot of this journey has been not rushing her and letting her do things on her time, and just making sure she's prepared for the next step before we try to move her on from the step she was on, because I definitely do not want any regressions or going back the opposite way. As far as we've come, it could be devastating for us to lose ground when we've gained so much. So I am the more reserved when it comes to her health and her physical therapies and all those type of things, just because I have to do everything I can to keep her from going back to where we were.
And you also knew that I wasn't trying to rush her. Because I would never have said, let's take her off of it and try and wean her if I didn't think she could do it.
Right.
Because she's tough. So, and Nevaeh, I'll tell you this too. even a baby with absolutely no issues that's carried to term and delivered just fine, when you're in the hospital on that third day and they say, okay, you can take her home, you're like,
I'm like, can we say one more day?
you're going to just let me take this home? Really? Sure about that?
I mean, when I brought Miles home, I was a nervous wreck because I unfortunately wasn't there for you when you were that little. So this was my first baby to bring home from the hospital.
Your first is the worst because you're like, maybe you shouldn't be trusting me with this. Clearly I needed help while I was here. Oh, I do want to do a shout out to my buddy Peter. Him and Liz got us these, when Miles was born, they got us this Owlet camera. It's like a little camera for the nursery and a little sock that goes on them that checks their breathing and their heart rate. We continually have used the camera, but after we weaned Talley, we stopped getting the little oxygen sensors from the home health place. So we would still use that sock to make sure that she was, breathing overnight. So thanks for that, buddy.
Thanks, Liz.
It's definitely not a sponsorship, but I would definitely say yes, it's awesome.
So Nevaeh, overall, we get Talley home. She's off the oxygen. She's been home for a year. She's doing well overall. How do you feel about having your baby sister that you've always wanted?
I mean, it's like kind of like a dream come true, you know. I've always wanted a baby sister, and like, she's such a sweet baby. Like, she'll go up to you and she'll like bury her face in your chest. I don't know if she's trying to bite you or hug you, but she's trying to do something.
Bite.
And like, but I remember when she first came home though, I thought she was really ugly. I mean,
Oh my God.
she was a ball.
Don't forget, Nevaeh, the internet's forever.
Hope Talley hears this one day. But when she first came home, she was really ugly though. But she finally got some hair. Not very much. She still has a really big forehead, so like, but she'll get more hair and stuff.
She had a lot of hair when she was born. Even though she was early, she was thick-headed.
She was still
Thick
really
hair.
bald.
She had like a wavy mane.
Well, they lose their hair and then they get it
Yeah.
back.
So she just got an early start on losing the baby hair, the newborn hair. They had to bring in the hospital barber though to. No, I'm just kidding. Give her the.
They did say when she had her surgery for her shunt, they were going to give us her hair, and they never did. So I don't know what that was about.
You're right, because I asked about it.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't know, I guess we'll get that. Even if they brought us hair, it probably wouldn't have been hers. It would have been like, here's some hair, we'll just give it to him.
Yeah.
We'll never know. So, Nevaeh, now that you are a big sister, not just to one, but to two, to this little baby girl and her rambunctious big brother, is being a big sister everything you thought it could be?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
How do you feel like it was different with Talley than it was with Miles when he came home?
well, when Miles came home, he didn't have all that equipment hooked up to him. He didn't have tubes all in his nose and stuff. So, like, I feel like he was probably smaller than Talley, though.
He was smaller when he came
Yeah.
home because he
Like
was only
Talley.
5 pounds. And by the
Talley was
time Talley
pretty
came
big.
home, she was 7 or 8 pounds.
Yeah.
He had eating problems. She didn't.
He still doesn't want to eat.
No, eating is Tally's superpower. She already says cheese. The only food she's ever not liked is that baby food with the meat.
The canned meat.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
believe
canned
her.
meat
That
baby food.
smelled bad.
She had chicken once. She, like, gagged when she ate it.
I bet Sophie wouldn't have eaten that either.
Way to go, Mom.
Any final thoughts, Nevaeh? Now that Tally's about 15 months old, she's standing, she's learning, she takes steps. She'll be walking soon.
I mean, it's definitely a miracle from God. Like, she didn't have to survive, but he had her fight and stuff. She fought so hard. Now she's made it so far now. Like, she's already pulling up on the couch and stuff. Pretty soon she'll be taking steps and she'll be walking. Who knows what she'll walk for next. Like, Miles, when he started walking, he wanted ice, so he would walk across the room for ice. So who knows what she'll walk for. But it's just moments to look forward to.
I'm pretty sure it'll be food. So, or a drink. She comes after fountain drinks. If she sees a fountain drink.
A straw. I mean, she likes to take the straws out of the drinks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she likes them.
So, I did promise this would be a shorter episode. I just lost Stephanie. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you got something out of this. Learned something. Oh, there she is.
I'm back.
Hey. Any final thoughts or observations, wife of mine?
I mean, it's really great to have Nevaeh join us. I know she's always wanted to be a YouTube star. Maybe not quite what she had in mind. And I wish she didn't have fake tattoos on her face. But, I mean, that's just the point of having an 11-year-old.
That's pretty great.
Overall, I think bringing Talley home to meet the kids was probably the highlight of her journey so far. And then meeting my parents and Mike's mom and Mike's dad and aunts and uncles and everyone who prayed for her and cheered her on.
Everybody who came over to visit for the first time had the same reactions as Nevaeh did. They've all been around newborn babies before, but, they didn't want to hurt her. They were nervous about picking her up with the oxygen tubes on her. And she just looked so fragile. But the truth is, she's never been fragile. She's a strong kid.
I mean, even now, she likes playing rough with Miles. Miles will just, hit her in the stomach or something. She'll start cracking up laughing. And she'll, try to hit him back or whatever.
Yeah.
Miles doesn't know his own strength.
She looks at him like, is that all you got? So, one of these days, she's going to put her hand up and just say...
One of these days, she's going to knock him out.
She's going to be like, bring it.
Because he'll, get on top of her. So, one day, she's really going to get him.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's probably almost old enough that I can start letting her watch Power Rangers, too.
That she's not going to pay attention to that.
She doesn't watch TV like Miles did.
Sometimes she will. Yeah, she won't even watch Minnie Mouse. Everyone loves Minnie Mouse.
And Power Rangers.
No one loves Power Rangers, but who doesn't love Minnie Mouse?
Everybody's got to go to bed.
Just trust me.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
Minnie Mouse
So
is pretty
thanks for joining us, everybody. I'd like to thank our oldest Nevaeh for joining us.
Yep.
She's got to go to bed now, so looks like Stephanie popped off again. So I'm going to call it an episode. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks from Team Talley.